Welcome back on Untitled. Today I want to propose you a video about
the White Dwarf issue 464, released by the Game Shop for May 2021. This is quite an interesting White Dwarf, and it's something that I yet say you can buy it because it's quite interesting. There are a lot of plots that are disclosed, and you can find a lot of things, quite interesting ones. And we can find something that is quite interesting that we can find inside, that it's this cover that it's related about the Fallen. This one is Cypher, that it's not the leader of the Fallen, but it's quite interesting as a character, and so this it's related a lot about the Dark Angels. So now we can open it and see what it's inside. Here we can find the alternative cover of the White Dwarf that we see better at the end. Here the team of the White Dwarf, and this is something that introduced something that we've seen in the previous video of the White Dwarf, that it was the post-cruise related about charter created with the Anvil of Chaos, and inside here there is these that are official ones, this one that you can take off from this White Dwarf, and these are some, or cut them, or eventually I suggest you to make a sort of copy, so make a photo, so on, copy them and glue on some paper card or so on to have them if you don't want to ruin the White Dwarf itself. And these are official ones that you can use, and are objectives that you can use, so it's something that it can be quite interesting as stratagems to use, so think about it because they can be quite interesting, but you have to see if you're interested about. They are not the main thing, but they are good adding about that it seems that you find more often in the future about. Here we have the contents of the White Dwarf with these that are the covers that we have seen, the artworks. So this is this cover without any writing, that it's quite amazing, and here the alternative cover that you will see better at the end. Here the main list of the readers to the White Dwarf itself, and here we can find a lot of ideas about painting, modifying, or so on. We can find, for example, this way to paint the Apotheosis Custodes, for example, that can be quite interesting. Here the basis or some ideas about modifying some things. Here we can find other options, for example this mod that has been modified to create Mortarion, that can be quite interesting. Obviously the Mortarion, not the corrupted praise demon one, but the one that it was before the corruption, so it can be quite interesting. Here are the personalization that can be quite nice, and we can find something was it can be quite irritating, because here it talks about Cursed City, and it will not the only referring about Cursed City in this White Dwarf, and we have to remember that Cursed City it's not available now, so the Minotaurs, yes, the game not, because has been I can say recalled by the Game Social, so for now this it's a bit of mocking in my opinion. Anyway, okay. Here other modifying and painting that we can find ideas about, that I think that can be quite interesting. And here instead we have an article about Phil Kelly for the campaigns. So it describes how some campaigns that have been famous, released by the Game Shop, has been developed and fought along. So I think that can be quite interesting to a sort of know a bit of the history of the Game Shop campaign side, so it can be quite interesting in a historical way at least. Here instead we have the part about the Warhammer 40k with the Dark Angels against the Fallen, and I want to make you notice that the scheme of color of the Fallen is black, and black it was the original color of the Dark Angel, so it's quite interesting. Anyway, we can move on and see here the tale of 4 warlords, that it can be quite interesting, because here we can see how it's been developed such armies. So we can find, for example, the Sons of Medusa with the scheme of color of it can be nice. Here the Thoth Dynasty, that I always think that it's really quite amazing, and I want to remember you that in the description you can find my scheme of color for the Necrons eventually. Here we can find this that it's related about the Inquisition and the Sisters of Battle, and I think that it was quite nice to see such ones. Here about the orcs, and here instead we can find about the flashpoint with the Cardon Warzone, with the part about the background and so on, that it's quite interesting. Really, this it's a campaign that is been developed along the White Dwarf themselves and makes a lot of background. It gives you a lot of background to see, and it's something that if you want to in a way create a sort of campaign, it can be quite interesting. Here you can find this, that it's not a battle report but a sort of it, because it's a story about that it's related about the zombies of Nargol against the Imperial Guard, and here it's a way to understand which is the prey, which is the hunter. So I think that it can be quite nice to read, because it's always a nice thing. And here instead we have the rules to play the flashpoint with these mission new ones. So we have the metallic filter ones, that it's this new word that we are going to play with, and there are a lot of rules that we can use, and you can use these to play even if it's not okay for now to meet and so on completely, but still it's something that can bring you fun playing, or eventually you can read it to play it after that you are able to meet other people and so on and play a campaign, because it gives you a lot of interesting options available. And here we have the Index Hereticus, so the usually Index Astartes, but a little about the Hereticus part with the Fallen. And here there is a lot of background, so if you don't know what are the Fallens, or you want to know the Fallen better, this is quite an interesting article to read, because there are a lot of things that are said. Here we have also something that is related to Cypher that can be interesting to read about, because it gives you some ideas of what could happen if Cypher reach some of its goals. So it's quite amazing. I like also these artworks that are quite amazing. And here the rules to play the Fallen. So here we have really how to play the Fallen, and these are official rules, so you can use these to play with. I think that are quite amazing. And here instead a way to create the Fallen themselves, so we see how it has been personalized, and I think that it's quite nice. This has been created by PT, and we can find that it has personalized the part about the Dark Angels and the part about the Fallen. So it's quite interesting, because it's really quite interesting, because this is about Eddie Echoes, not about PT, but it's something that you can see a lot of ideas. For example, this personalization with this positioning or something like this. It can be interesting to understand how you can use the scheme of colors. You can use a lot of things to represent an army. And about the Fallen, in the article it's written also how the Fallen are not technically limited, and it's a really intriguing part of the background itself. And here how to paint the Fallen themselves, so it can be quite nice about it. Eventually, if you're interested about the painting the black armors, I realized a video about how to do this, so eventually you can also see it. And I think that this is something that it can be quite interesting. You can also use this as a reference to, for example, writing or create some symbols and so on, that can be quite nice ones. And here the second part about the article relating about the White Dwarf that has asked the painters of the Golden Demon to paint a Adeptus Sororitas theme about dioramas and so on. And in the previous one we have seen some of them, and here we see some other of them. And I think that these are quite amazing, because here you can find ideas about how to paint, about how to create dioramas and so on, so they can be really quite amazing. Here we've seen before about this, and so you can see how you can use the volumes, and I think that it's a nice way to study, to understand how to use the volumes, the 3D dimension to create something. And it's something that I really suggest you to read and more than read, see the images, because they are really quite amazing ones. And here we can find the selection and also the winner. And I find this really quite amazing one, because you can see how it's quite simple as volumetry, but it creates a lot of ideas about how you can see such one. You can change the site that you see it, and based on it you can change the main part that you are referring to, so it can be quite a good one to see. And here instead we can move to see about the Age of Sigmar side of the White Dwarf. And this image is quite amazing, because we can see the Chaos, we can see the Stormcast Eternus ones, and the Death. So we have a lot of things that can be seen here. And here we have the battle report about the Illuminate against the new Soulblight Gravleords battle tome. In this case it's about the Anvil dynasty with the Lauka Vai, and this can be useful also to understand how big it's the Lauka Vai, so that you can compare the size of the Lauka Vai itself against other models. So it can be quite interesting to understand how it is big and so on, so you have at least an idea about how nice it is, till I'll publish a video about how big it is, because I'll build it and also modify it. So here we have the part about the Illuminate, the cells, and here the battle report. This is quite interesting to understand how it works. Age of Sigmar 1, even if soon it will be released the new edition about Age of Sigmar, and in particular about the Illuminate and the Anvil, but the Soulblight Gravleords army. So we can see how it can be played, how you can gain a lot of ideas about, and I think that it's always a good thing to see these ones, even if they are old battles and so on, to understand how the ways to play one at least of such army can be quite amazing one. So really I suggest you to give a sight. And here instead we have Javid Johnson that proposed an old battle but renewed with the Age of Sigmar rules. So here it's a way to have this Battle of Corpus renewed, so that we can play with the new rules. But what I like more is this Anvil of Blood. So we have seen before in other White Dwarfs the anvils related about other armies, and here it's related about the Soulblight Gravleords. So we have the option about the Necromancer, the Vampire Martial Lord or the Vampire Arcan Lord. We had the White King, so not the normal skeleton one that we've seen in the Journal Handbook 2020, but a White King specific one. So we can have a lot of it. Remember that it's not official, or better, it's official, but if you want to play with match play, you have to have the agreement of your opponent. Still, I hope that in the future this type of ways will be increased and developed in the way that you can use normally, because they can be quite interesting to create your own hero as you want to lead your armies. And I think that even if you need some adjustment on some ways, you can have a lot of interesting options. I like also these images that are always amazing, and so we have a lot of ways to personalize our characters here. Really, it's something that I'm really thinking about developing some miniatures based on such anvils, because they are really quite awesome. And here instead a little novel, but it's quite amusing, because its background it's mainly related about what we have seen in the Broken Realm Tactics, Broken Realm Belacor, and here it's developed. And what I said at the beginning, that it's about the plot being made clear, it's about here, because there are a lot of things that it's referred about the previous releasing and this new one, because it's really quite awesome. And then we have the Realm of the Horned Rat, because it's always forgotten that the Horned Rat is a chaotic god, and here we see so about it. So background about this realm, that it's quite interesting, the ways to paint the rats themselves and the war stone. So can be quite interesting to understand how to paint some things. And I think that it can be quite amusing to understand a lot of things, from painting to conversions to collecting eventually, so that we understand better about it. I think that there are a lot of nice ways. I like, for example, this conversion about this one as weapons. Really quite a lot of interesting options. Here we have about Warhammer Underworld Chasm. About here, I always say that I'm not interested about. I like the images that are referred to because they're really quite awesome, but I'm not interested about the game itself, so I can't judge if this article is useful. Still, I think that it can be, anyway, if you're interested about Underworld Chasm, good to see how the ones that create the rules play it, so I think that it's always nice. And this is the other part that it's almost I'm mocking about in this White Dwarf, because it's really about the Cursed City, a sandbox that has been released, but not released because it has been recalled by the Games Workshop. And here we can see a lot of things related about. Games Workshop released anyway the possibility to buy at least the heroes, the models that were inside. Okay, still the game is not available, and sincerely it's a pity, because the game, for what I could have seen about it, it can be said that it's quite interesting, and the miniatures were a really good way to save a lot of money about some type of miniatures. But even if you don't think about it, it had a lot of heroes, a lot of interesting and amazing miniatures. So okay, here we have about the Middle Earth, so we have the rules and so on to play with, and it can be quite interesting because we have also the new scenario to play with. And here instead we have about the Chronicles of Wonder with the new part about, the new chapter about, and here again it's related about Gotrek Garrison, that can be quite amazing one. So here, as usually, I suggest you to read, because it's always nice to read something that it's related about the Black Library, and so you can understand if you're interested to buy also other books related about the Black Library, because the authors are quite nice. Okay, each author has a different style, so you can like or not, a different theme, so you can like or not. Still, I think that they are really quite interesting to read and to understand if you are interested about reading other options about, because I suggest you always to read about, because they can be a good way to understand and maybe to have a like about such new source about background, that it's always an amazing one. And here we have inside the studio, where we can find something that we see in the next videos eventually, so it can be quite interesting. And here we have the alternative cover that it's really quite amazing. I like this one, maybe even more than the other one, and this one it's related about the releasing about the Soulblight Gravleords Battletome. Instead, about the next issue, we see the Scissors of Excesses, so about Age of Sigmar, and quite probably there will be something related about mercenaries with the Titans, or better, about the Sons of the Behemoth. So it's something that it can be quite interesting. Quite surely soon we'll see a new releasing about a new edition about Age of Sigmar, so it will be nice to see how it will be developing, and if the mercenaries will be part of the main book instead of being in a sort of side track eventually. So it can be quite amazing one. So what to say about this White Dwarf? I think that it's really something amazing. I like because there are a lot of infos, because there is the Anvil of Blood that I find it okay. I'm interested about it more than all the other Anvils, so it's something that I really see about. But it's also something that brings you about the Fallen, about a lot of ideas to conversion, about a lot of ideas to paint. It gives you a lot of background to talk about. Think about the novel that I talked to you about. So there are a lot of things, and sincerely I find it quite amusing. There are some missing parts. For example, there are not Aeronautica, there is not Warcry, there is not Necromunda this time. So there are some parts that are missing. Still, it's something that I suggest you to think about, because it has a lot of value in my opinion. Anyway, from Dynamod it's everything. I invite you to put a like on this video, to subscribe to the channel, to ring the bell, and to comment this video if you are interested in something about this video or you want to suggest me some arguments for other videos. I hope to see you again. To the next time.